Hi, Dr. Paul Corona here. I wanted to share my new book, which came out earlier this year. This is my sixth book. My first three books I started in early about 2002, and the three-book series, Healing the Mind and Body, the trilogy. It took me about 12 years to complete those books. After those three books, I wrote two books before this one, which I haven't released yet, but they're actually meant to be training manuals because I want to teach doctors how to do what I do. And so I'm going to work on those next and probably, hopefully, maybe release those next year or so. But after I was done with those two books, this was about 4 or 5, maybe 5 years ago, I started thinking about writing another one, but I didn't want to write one like my other ones. My first three books, a lot about the science and but very readable. I write my books so for the layperson I really understand, and I try to not be too technical and to make it much easier to understand. But with this book, it's the Corona Protocol, a scientifically proven medical solution to stop addiction, bullying, homelessness, school shootings, and suicide, 30 years in the making. I know it's kind of a shocking title. The subtitle is a little bit out there. I get that. But with this book, I really wanted to make it a modern book about our times. And with this book, too, I've always been a fiction reader. I've always loved especially fantasy novels. But I've always loved fiction and since I was a little kid. And so I've always kind of wanted to write a fiction novel, which I'm planning on doing in the future. But with this book, I thought I want to be different. I want this book to be about storytelling. So in this book, I tell 30 original short stories about people that have different types of struggles with mental illness. And so the first section is on anxiety disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, and ADD. And the second section is on PTSD, eating disorders, schizophrenia, and what I call treatment-resistant depression, so tougher to treat depression. The third section is on personality disorders, so I talk about narcissism, histrionic personality, borderline personality, and then sociopaths and psychopaths. And then the fourth section of the book is the subtitle subjects: addiction, bullying, homelessness, school shootings, suicide. So what I do with these four sections is I talk about the subject in brief, and then I refer to my first three books. I say, so if you want to read more about the subject, and I refer to what chapter and what book to look at of my first three if you want to read more detailed information about the subject. But I didn't want this to be so much about the subject, more about the stories. So after I talk about the subject, maybe a top 2 or 3 pages worth, I launch into a story about it. The first section has 2 stories on each topic because they're the most common things I see. But the other ones all have one short story. So I tried to make the stories exciting to read, fun to read. I explain what I do with medications. One of the stories in particular is pretty creepy. One of them is pretty scary. But I try to make it compelling to read and fun to read, and I've had a lot of really good response to the book. In section 5, I talk about my story and tell people like how I came from the beginning of my practice to now and what every step of the way. So I tell my story, and then the last section I tell also my story, but maybe some of the struggles I've gone through and how I've been able to persevere. So it's a very personal book to me, because I tell about myself at the end, and it's very very honest book, but I really enjoyed writing it. It was a process because I had to edit it and rewrite it, and so it took me about 5 years to get it right. But then after releasing it, I'm just really happy with the response I've gotten from people. They've loved the book. Some people have read it 2 or 3 times by now already, and so it's really nice to hear the comments from people about how it's affected their lives. And so anyway, I just wanted to introduce the book. It's available on Amazon, where it still has a 5-star rating. And also available at Barnes & Noble and Walmart. Hope you enjoy it.